All right, let's dive into what is, without a doubt, one of the most influential stories ever told. We're going to break down the story of a single choice, a choice with absolutely world-changing consequences, and it's all packed into one chapter, Genesis chapter 3.
So I want you to think about this for a second. It's a question that really gets to the very heart of the story we're exploring. It perfectly frames this dilemma about paradise, temptation, and a decision that, well, it changed everything.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Before this choice was even a possibility, before any of this happened, you have to understand there was this state of perfect harmony. The story paints this picture of a totally idyllic life, right? You've got the man and the woman in the Garden of Eden. They have everything they could possibly want. And, this is a key detail, the text says they were naked and felt no shame. It's a really powerful way of describing their complete innocence. Now, in the middle of all this incredible freedom, there was just one rule, one boundary. And the consequence for crossing it couldn't have been more serious. You will surely die. The stakes are about as high as they can possibly get. And this is where things start to get interesting. A new character enters the garden, and you just know they're here to shake things up and challenge that one rule. So, this new voice belongs to the serpent. And the one word the text uses to describe it is subtle. That little detail is a huge clue. It hints at a very clever, very crafty nature that we're about to see in action. Now listen to how the serpent starts this whole conversation. It doesn't begin with a command or an attack. Nope. It starts with a question. And it's a question that twists the truth, making God's one rule sound way more restrictive than it actually was. This is a classic tactic, you know? It's designed to plant that first tiny seed of doubt. And then boom, the challenge becomes direct. The serpent makes 3 huge moves here. First, it flat out contradicts God, saying, nah, you're not going to die. Second, it attacks God's motives, suggesting he's holding something back from them. And third, it makes this incredible promise, break the rule and you'll become like God himself. So you can just feel the tension, right? That seed of doubt has been watered with this huge promise of power. And now the woman is left to make a choice. What is she going to do? And what's so fascinating is that the text actually walks us through her thought process. The fruit appeals to her on 3 different levels. First, it looks good to eat, a physical desire. Second, it's beautiful, a pleasure to look at. And third, it promised to make her wise, an intellectual desire. She's now weighing all of this against the one command she was given. And just like that, the choice is made. The words are so simple, so direct. She takes the fruit and she eats. And then she gives some to her husband, who's right there with her, and he eats too. It's done. The line has been crossed. Okay, and right here, the whole tone of the story just flips on a dime. The result of their choice is instant, but maybe not in the way they, or the serpent, thought it would be. So the serpent was kind of right. Their eyes are opened. But what they see isn't godlike power. It's their own vulnerability. Their innocence is just gone. And in its place is this new, really uncomfortable self-awareness. And that feeling of shame leads them to cover themselves up and, for the first time ever, to hide from God. This next part is just so powerful. God is walking in the garden and calls out, but that question, where are you? You know it's not about his GPS coordinates, right? It's deeper than that. It's about their relationship, about where they stand. That perfect connection they had, it's been broken. So, they're caught. How do they react? Well, they do something that's, let's be honest, deeply human. They immediately start playing the blame game. When God questions the man, his first instinct is to point the finger. But listen closely to how he says it. He doesn't just blame the woman. He says, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me. Whoa, so he's not just blaming her. He's kind of implying it's God's fault too. Then it's the woman's turn. Does she take responsibility? Nope. The blame gets passed right down the line to the serpent. It's like this hot potato of responsibility, and nobody wants to be left holding it. So, with everyone pointing fingers and no one taking responsibility, the story moves to its final act. Judgment is handed down, and a totally new reality is about to begin for everyone involved. All right, so here's the verdict. Specific consequences are laid out for each of them. The serpent is cursed. The woman is told she'll have pain in childbirth. And for the man, the very ground he works is cursed. He'll have to struggle and sweat for his food, and he's reminded that one day he'll return to the dust he came from. But the biggest consequence of all? Exile. They are kicked out of paradise. They're sent into that world of struggle and toil that was just described. Their relationship with God and even with the earth itself has been fundamentally and permanently altered. And just to make sure there's no doubt that this is permanent, the chapter ends with this incredible image. The way back isn't just locked, it's actively guarded by angelic beings and a flaming sword. There's absolutely no going back. And that, right there, is why this one chapter has had such a massive impact on, well, everything. Art, literature, philosophy. It's a foundational story that explores themes we still wrestle with today: free will, the nature of good and evil, and the origins of human suffering. So it all comes down to this one last thought. The serpent promised knowledge, and in a way, they got it. Knowledge of shame, of fear, of good and evil. But the question this story leaves hanging in the air is simply this: was the price of that knowledge really worth the loss of paradise?